Our political reporter, Andrew Misra, is in Westminster tonight. Andrew.
Well, Matt, 3 months of headlines around this £5 million gift later, and for Nigel Farage's opponents, it continues to be the gift that keeps on giving. Mr Farage has been almost invisible, hasn't he, since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister? The questions, though, have not disappeared. Today, Reform wanted to make quite an eye-catching announcement about immigration. Instead, that was overshadowed by their party's leader appearing to change his position over this now infamous gift. Nigel Farage has kept a low profile since triggering a by-election in Clacton last month. That decision put the brakes on an investigation into whether he broke parliamentary rules by not declaring a £5 million gift in the run-up to the last general election from crypto billionaire Christopher Harborne, seen here trailing Nigel Farage when he was attacked with a milkshake in 2019. Mr Farage said the money was for his security. The key issue, though, is whether it should have been declared. The House of Commons Code of Conduct says new MPs must register all registrable benefits received in the 12 months before their election. Nigel Farage reportedly received the gift in April 2024. Since the controversy around it emerged, Mr Farage has insisted he had no intention of returning to politics until June 2024, which is when he returned as Reform leader, the month before the general election, that July. Today, though, he admitted discussing coming back as party leader earlier than previously stated.
In the spring of that year, I did talk to Richard Tice about what the liabilities would be if I was to come back to that position. And you'd be a bit of a mug, wouldn't you, to walk into a job and not find out what the potential liabilities were.
The Labour Party chair said Nigel Farage has blown a gaping hole in his excuse for not declaring the gift. Labour and the other major parties aren't standing candidates in next Thursday's by-election. A new poll suggests a fifth of voters could back Mr Farage's most well-known opponent, a bin. Well, add to that the news that Nigel Farage appeared to confirm that he was facing another separate probe about the support he received from the convicted fraudster George Cottrell. In addition, we found out today that Reform's deputy leader, Richard Tice, is now being investigated by the Parliamentary standards watchdog over an allegation that he failed to declare an interest around a debate about UK democracy and Israeli influence. Richard Tice, for his part, says he's being investigated for standing against anti-Semitism and has accused the Standards Commissioner of investigating others ahead of him. He also condemned what he called garbage reporting around the issue. But put all of this together, and for a party that is trying to show that it is different, being caught up in so many different investigations, well, it's not particularly helpful.
Andrew Misra, thank you very much indeed. Well, Nigel Farage wanted to get the political focus onto his party's home turf by talking about immigration. At this morning's press conference, he insisted that his party's plan to use the Royal Navy to intercept and return migrant boats crossing the English Channel would comply with international law. It comes after Andy Burnham visited Dover this weekend and hinted at his plans to tackle small boat crossings. Anya Pop reports.
Take back control of our borders. We will detain those who come here illegally.
Strengthening our borders and beefing up our border force.
It's been the defining political issue of the last decade.
The answer is to control immigration.
Becoming the Achilles heel of successive prime ministers as they try to get a grip on the enduring challenge of small boat crossings in the Channel.
A boat came across on the 22nd of May.
This weekend, the new Prime Minister set out his pledge to tackle the same old problem, promising his government will be relentless, both by doubling the number of enforcement officers tackling people smuggling gangs and offering safe routes to asylum seekers.
The public don't like the idea that the border looks like it's not controlled. We need to bring back that control, but also we need to offer support for people who genuinely need it.
Andy Burnham inherited an immigration policy already showing the green shoots of success. 14,500 people arrived via small boats this year already, but that's down by 43% from the same period last year and the lowest since 2021. Now he must decide whether to continue in that hard immigration approach or appeal to the left wing of his party and go softer, as many of them would like.
The thorny debate around immigration was reignited by images of around 70,000 Moroccans crossing the border into Ceuta last week. At least 72 people died trying to reach the Spanish enclave on the North African coast. Spain says 98% of people have now been returned, but it sparked an internal reckoning and divisions within Europe, giving those on the right a boost in their warnings of the consequences of lax border control. Cue Nigel Farage, his party fresh from a litany of allegations and by-election defeats. Today he was in more comfortable territory, launching new immigration plans, promising the largest military operation in the English Channel since World War II, should he win power.
Operation Fortress will be a combined military operation. We are very confident that our policy of securely picking people up and safely taking them back to France, we are entirely confident that that falls within other conventions of international law.
But if the Élysée Palace refuses, make no mistake, His Majesty's Royal Marines will disembark them safely on the very shore they left that morning. Those are the only two options.
The French government responded to Reform's plans, calling it a violation of French sovereignty, as well as a violation of maritime law and international law.
France would be well within its right to try to repel our navy, and what you could see is the French navy meeting ours in the Channel, and you could imagine the diplomatic fallout if that were to happen. It would put at risk the French goodwill that we've developed over decades.
Reform UK say their mission would be humanitarian and therefore legal, so the Royal Navy could dock in a French port, something the French would no doubt dispute. But all of this may ultimately prove academic if controversies surrounding Nigel Farage and Reform continue to impact them at the ballot box.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to retired Navy Commander Tom Sharp, who spent 27 years in the Royal Navy. He's now the defence columnist for the Daily Telegraph. I asked him for his thoughts of the Navy being used to stop small boats crossing the Channel.
The Royal Navy is part of the solution. It is not the solution. And the concern I have with the plan as it stands is it trumpets them as if they are, like the cavalry sort of coming over the hill, the largest maritime operation in the Channel since D-Day. Well, we don't have those ships. We don't have permission from the French. Quite a superficial glance at this starts to unravel. It's a good idea to get this conversation going. It's a problem that needs to be resolved. The Navy have a role, but it's not the lead role. It's not the key one. It's just part of a much wider matrix that appears to have been largely overlooked on the back of this plan. I
mean, he said in his proposal that he did consult with people like you, naval commanders or former naval commanders, and they all gave him the thumbs up.
Right. Well, none of the naval commanders I've spoken to have given it a thumbs up. In fact, quite a lot of them have been the other way, not least of which the way it's written, it's very confused. It's got gaping holes in it where you would normally expect to find some clarity. So, yes, I don't know who those naval commanders are. I have an idea. It's not my business. It's not how I would have written this because like I say, one of the fundamental principles on which this whole thing is governed is safety of life at sea and the ability to go into French waters to enact that. In other words, saving these migrants as they cross the Channel before they're even in distress. You're now in French waters, and now, according to the plan, you're authorised to take them into French ports under SOLAS, safety of life at sea, and that will never sit easily. That as an idea, as a basic principle, will not sit easily with any naval commander I've spoken to.
Does it actually then endanger their lives potentially?
Look, some of these boats are in distress, and we know tragically some of them die. They are fundamentally not particularly safe vessels. But if you look at the RNLI and the border force and the capabilities they have to get hundreds of people off these rubber boats onto theirs, it's actually very well configured. They've got low freeboards. They're designed to do it. You do that with a warship, you will not achieve that. You may well make the problem much worse. If you do it with 4 ribs full of Royal Marines, which is part of the plan, what happens if that rib doesn't want to turn around? And actually, they've paid a lot of money and taken a lot of risk, and they want to keep going to the UK. What do you do then with your 4 ribs? Are you jumping on board Are they jumping on board you? Then you need to refuel the ribs. How are we doing that? In which ship? So there's huge sort of practical gaping holes in this underneath the philosophical issue with France even supporting it in the first place.
I mean, we know that the actual numbers of small boats has declined in recent years. So whatever is happening, it seems to be working a bit. What, in your view, is the most important thing that needs to happen for the small boats not to cross the channel? And, and if they do actually get into the water, who should stop them?
Well, and that's the two really good questions, but very separate. To your first one, smashing up the economic model that supports the people who are running this trade. That is far and away the most important part of this. Once they're in the water, then you are in that sort of conundrum here, because French waters back up against ours. As you go further west, as you go west of Dungeness, the divide opens and you get a little bit of high seas in the middle there where you can maneuver with a bit more freedom, but it's very complicated. It's legally fraught. Now, I'm forever criticizing our maritime lawyers for being overly conservative. We do need to be more aggressive in this space, particularly when it comes to things like the dark fleet. But you also can't rip up the rule book. You can't go full, in my view, full narco boat, Caribbean, sort of ready aim fire. But you'd be amazed how many people I have this conversation with who think that you can and that you should. And
given Mr. Farage's own personal issues regarding finances at the moment, and the polls are dipping for him compared to Labour, I mean, he's got a few problems. For fear of tipping our toes into political waters here, do you think that this is largely performative on his behalf?
I think if you look at the timing of it with what happened in Morocco last weekend, and as you say, what's coming up, and then a little bit of finance over the top, I mean, it's very hard. And then you look at the thinness of this. It really does look like it's been on a back burner, it's not been matured properly, and then suddenly someone goes, get that out there, we need to do this. And the Navy becomes the cavalry, and no one's done the hard sums on what that really means or what that looks like. So it smacks of isotrope in 2022, which was the last time this grenade was lobbed at the Royal Navy to fix, and that petered away pretty quickly, and I expect this will too.
Retired Naval Commander Tom Sharp, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.